What if the meals Appalachian grandmothers cooked in their wood stove kitchens were never lost? They were simply forgotten. One specific dish was cooked in nearly every mountain home whenever someone fell sick, whenever grief settled into a house, whenever a body needed mending faster than medicine could manage. Modern nutrition science is only now confirming exactly why that dish worked, and it sits at number one. These 20 meals were passed down through generations of Appalachian families, preserved in cast iron skillets, root cellars, and memories long before anyone wrote them into a cookbook. Most modern Americans have forgotten them entirely. Nutritionists and food historians are only now rediscovering what was simmering on that stove. In this video, we count down 20 forgotten Appalachian meals, each one backed by old mountain wisdom and confirmed piece by piece by modern research. These are not in your cookbook. They should be. Appalachian foodways developed across 2 centuries of isolation, hardship, and resourcefulness in the hollows and ridgelines of Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, and western North Carolina. Families grew what the rocky soil allowed, foraged what the forest offered, and preserved everything they could against the long, hard winters. This body of kitchen knowledge, passed mother to daughter, grandmother to grandchild, kept entire communities alive without a single doctor for 50 miles in any direction. Today, researchers studying folk medicine, nutrition science, and gut health are quietly confirming what mountain grandmothers already knew. These meals were medicine. Before we begin, if you want more videos like this, subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss the next one. Number 20, sassafras tea. Mountain families dug the roots of the sassafras tree each spring, scrubbed them clean, and boiled them into a fragrant reddish tea believed to thin the blood and clear out winter sluggishness. Grandmothers called it spring tonic, brewed the moment the first green buds appeared on the hillside, a signal that the body needed cleansing after months of salted pork and preserved food. Modern research has identified safrole compounds in sassafras, root that in regulated trace amounts show antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties, though the Food and Drug Administration now limits commercial safrole content due to concentrated extract concerns. To prepare it the old way safely, use commercially available safrole-free sassafras tea bags steeped for 5 minutes in hot water. Number 19, bean and cornbread suppers. Nearly every Appalachian household ate a version of this meal several nights a week. A pot of soaked pinto beans simmered for hours with a piece of fat back, served alongside a skillet of cornbread baked in bacon grease. It was cheap, it was filling, and it fed entire families through lean winters when cash money simply did not exist. Modern research confirms that the combination of legumes and corn creates a complete protein profile. Since beans are rich in lysine, while corn provides methionine, the 2 amino acids each food lacks on its own. A 2018 review in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that regular legume consumption significantly lowers LDL cholesterol and improves long-term blood sugar control. Soak dried pinto beans overnight, simmer slowly with a smoked ham hock, and serve with skillet cornbread. Number 18, wild ramps sautéed in bacon fat. Every April, families climbed into the hollows to dig wild ramps, a pungent member of the onion and garlic family that pushed up through the melting snow before almost anything else in the forest. Sautéed quickly in bacon fat with a pinch of salt, ramps were considered the first fresh green of the year, eaten almost ceremonially after a winter of canned and preserved food. Modern research has found that ramps contain significant concentrations of lichen, the same sulfur compound responsible for garlic's documented cardiovascular and antimicrobial benefits. A 2020 study in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry showed allicin-rich foods measurably reduce oxidative stress markers in the bloodstream. Saute freshly foraged or farmers market ramps in a small amount of rendered fat until wilted and fragrant. Number 17, poke salad, cooked wild pokeweed greens. This one comes with a serious warning built directly into the tradition itself. Pokeweed is toxic in its raw form, and mountain families developed a precise multi-boil method, boiling the young leaves, draining the water, and repeating the process 2 or 3 times before finally frying the greens in fat with eggs. Done correctly, this ancient detoxification method removed the plant's dangerous alkaloids while preserving a green packed with vitamin A, vitamin C, and iron. Folk healers across the mountains swore by poke salad as a spring blood builder after winter's low in fresh produce. If you want to try this today, buy canned poke salad from an established Appalachian supplier rather than foraging and boiling it yourself, since the traditional preparation requires generational expertise to execute safely. Number 16, chicken and dumplings made with a whole stewed hen. When a family fell sick, or when there was simply a special occasion worth marking, an old laying hen past her egg-producing years would go into the pot, simmered for hours until the meat fell from the bone, then finished with hand-rolled flour dumplings dropped directly into the rich broth. This was Appalachian comfort food in its purest form, a dish built to stretch one bird into a meal for 8 people, while delivering deep nourishment to anyone recovering from illness. Modern research on bone broth confirms that long, slow simmering extracts, collagen, glycine, and glutamine, compounds now studied for their measurable effects on gut lining repair and inflammation reduction. Simmer a whole stewing hen for several hours, then drop in simple flour and buttermilk dumplings until they puff and cook through. Number 15, leather breeches, dried green beans reconstituted and cooked with fatback. Before refrigeration reached the mountains, families strung fresh green beans onto thread with a needle and hung them to dry in the kitchen rafters, preserving an entire summer harvest for winter eating. To prepare leather breeches, the dried beans were soaked overnight, then simmered for hours with a chunk of salted pork until tender and deeply flavored. This preservation method retained significantly more nutrients than modern canning, since air drying at moderate temperatures preserves heat-sensitive vitamins that boiling water processing destroys. A 2019 study in the Journal of Food Science confirmed that air-dried vegetables retain substantially higher levels of vitamin C and folate compared to their canned counterparts. Soak dried green beans overnight, then simmer slowly with smoked pork until fully tender. Number 14, milk gravy over biscuits, sometimes called sawmill gravy. This dish fed loggers, coal miners, and farmhands who needed dense calories before a long day of physical labor. Rendered pork fat, flour, milk, and black pepper combined into a thick white gravy poured generously over hot biscuits, a meal designed purely for sustained energy. While modern nutrition rightly cautions against excessive saturated fat, traditional sawmill gravy made with whole, minimally processed ingredients provided calcium, protein, and slow-digesting fat that kept manual laborers fueled for hours without the blood sugar crash of refined carbohydrates alone. Make a roux from a small amount of rendered fat and flour, whisk in whole milk slowly, and season generously with black pepper. Number 13, soup beans with a side of raw onion and cornbread. Nearly identical to the bean and cornbread supper, but distinct enough in mountain memory to earn its own place, soup beans referred specifically to beans cooked thin and brothy, almost like a soup, eaten with a raw onion sliced on the side rather than cooked into the pot. Mountain families believed the raw onion cleared the sinuses and aided digestion of the heavy bean protein. Modern research on raw allium vegetables confirms that cutting and chewing raw onion releases significantly higher concentrations of quercetin and organosulfur compounds than cooking allows, both linked to measurable anti-inflammatory effects in clinical studies. Simmer pinto or Great Northern beans until brothy, and serve with a thick slice of raw sweet onion alongside cornbread. Number 12, fried apples with cinnamon, cooked from dried apple rings. Apples were sliced thin and strung to dry above the wood stove each autumn, preserved for a full year of cooking. To make fried apples, the dried rings were reconstituted in water, then fried slowly in butter or bacon, fat with sugar and cinnamon, until soft and caramelized, served alongside breakfast or as a simple dessert. Modern research on dried fruit preservation confirms that properly air-dried apples retain the majority of their polyphenol content, plant compounds linked to cardiovascular benefits in a 2021 meta-analysis published in the journal Nutrients. Reconstitute dried apple rings in warm water, then fry slowly in a small amount of butter with cinnamon until tender. Number 11, hoe cakes, a simple cornmeal flatbread cooked directly on a hot griddle or hoe blade in the field. Named for the literal farming tool early settlers sometimes cooked them on over an open fire, hoe cakes were a fast, portable bread made from nothing more than cornmeal, water, and salt, cooked quickly for workers who could not spare time for a full meal. Corn was central to Appalachian survival, and modern nutrition research confirms that whole ground cornmeal, unlike heavily processed cornstarch products, retains meaningful fiber and B vitamin content. Mix stone ground cornmeal with hot water and a pinch of salt into a thick batter, and cook on a hot cast iron griddle until crisp on both sides. Number 10, buttermilk and cornbread crumbled together as a light supper. On evenings when families were too tired, too poor, or simply not hungry enough for a full cooked meal, crumbling leftover cornbread into a glass of cold buttermilk was a common, almost universal Appalachian supper. This simple pairing delivered probiotic cultures from the fermented buttermilk alongside the complex carbohydrates of the cornbread. A 2023 review in the journal Nutrients confirmed that fermented dairy products like buttermilk support beneficial gut bacteria diversity, with measurable reductions in inflammatory markers among regular consumers. Crumble day-old cornbread into a tall glass of cold cultured buttermilk and eat with a spoon. Number 9, wilted lettuce with hot bacon grease dressing, often called kilt lettuce. As soon as the earliest garden lettuce came up in spring, mountain families would pick it fresh, then pour hot bacon drippings and a splash of vinegar directly over the leaves, wilting them slightly while the fat was still sizzling. This dish combined fresh, vitamin-rich greens with the acetic acid of vinegar and modern research on vinegar consumption, including a well-documented 2005 study in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition, confirms that vinegar meaningfully slows post-meal blood sugar spikes when eaten alongside a meal. Toss fresh garden lettuce with hot bacon drippings and a generous splash of apple cider vinegar just before serving. Now we're halfway through the list. Pause and notice something. Barley porridge, bone broth, and fermented dairy keep reappearing across this table. The same 3 ingredients modern gut health research keeps circling back to. The next several dishes lead directly toward the meal Appalachian families cooked whenever sickness or grief entered a home. If you're learning something, hit the like button so this reaches more families who still remember their grandmother's kitchen. Number 8, pinto bean and ham bone soup with a splash of vinegar stirred in at the table. Similar in spirit to soup beans, but distinct in its addition of a leftover ham bone simmered for hours and a personal splash of vinegar added at the table, this dish stretched a single holiday ham across an entire week of meals. The ham bone released collagen and marrow nutrients into the broth over long cooking, and modern collagen research confirms measurable benefits to joint and gut lining health from slow simmered bone broths. Simmer a leftover ham bone with soaked pinto beans for several hours, and let each diner add their own splash of vinegar to taste. Number 7. Souse meat, a jellied pork dish made from the head and feet of a freshly slaughtered hog. During hog killing season each autumn, nothing went to waste, and the head, feet, and tougher cuts were simmered for many hours until the meat fell apart and the collagen-rich liquid gelled naturally as it cooled. This dish is nearly identical in nutritional composition to modern bone broth and gelatin supplements, now sold at significant markup in health food stores. A 2025 review in Nutrition Reviews documented measurable intestinal lining repair effects from regular collagen and gelatin consumption. Simmer pork feet and other collagen-rich cuts for many hours until the broth gels naturally when chilled. Number 6. Cracklin bread, cornbread studded with crispy rendered pork skin. When hogs were butchered, the skin was rendered down for lard, and the crispy leftover bits, called cracklins, were folded directly into cornbread batter, adding both flavor and a concentrated source of protein and gelatin. This use of every part of the animal reflected the broader Appalachian principle of total resourcefulness, and modern nutrition research confirms that rendered pork skin cracklins are a genuinely dense source of collagen protein, similar in composition to the bone broths increasingly studied for gut health. Fold small, crispy pieces of rendered pork skin into your standard cornbread batter before baking. Number 5, dried apple stack cake, a tall layered cake built from thin spice cake layers and dried apple filling. Traditionally assembled by an entire community for weddings, where each family brought one layer to stack together. This tradition turned a simple preserved fruit filling into a communal celebration food, and the dried apples at its center carry the same polyphenol benefits confirmed in modern dried fruit research. The gathering ritual itself, families contributing individual layers to build one shared cake, reflected deep community bonds that modern social health research increasingly links to longevity and reduced depression rates. Bake several thin spice cake layers and stack them with a cooked filling of reconstituted dried apples, cinnamon, and a small amount of sugar. Number 4, sassafras and honey cough remedy, a concentrated version of the spring tonic tea sweetened heavily with raw mountain honey and given specifically to family members with a cough or sore throat. Mountain healers understood intuitively that honey soothed an irritated throat, and modern research validates this completely. A 2020 systematic review of 14 randomized trials published in BMJ Evidence-Based Medicine found honey outperformed over-the-counter cough medicine for upper respiratory infections. Prepare saffron-free sassafras tea and stir in a generous spoonful of raw, unfiltered local honey while the tea is still warm. Number 3, mustard green pot liquor, the vitamin-rich broth left behind after slow cooking a large pot of mustard or collard greens with a piece of salt pork, traditionally saved and sipped separately, or used to dip cornbread directly into the pot. Mountain families understood that the cooking liquid itself held nutritional value beyond the greens, and modern research confirms this instinct entirely. A 2019 study in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that a significant percentage of the vitamin C, vitamin K, and calcium content of leafy greens leaches directly into the cooking liquid during simmering. Simmer mustard or collard greens slowly with a piece of smoked pork, and save the resulting broth to drink or dip cornbread into separately. Number 2, fried salt pork with milk gravy. Served specifically to new mothers and the recently ill as a strengthening meal, believed to rebuild blood and strength after childbirth or serious illness. Thin slices of preserved salt pork were fried crisp, then a simple milk gravy was made from the rendered drippings and served over biscuits, delivering concentrated calories, iron, and fat to a body in genuine need of rebuilding. Modern postpartum nutrition research confirms that iron and calorie needs increase significantly after childbirth, and traditional recovery foods across many cultures independently arrived at similarly dense, iron-rich preparations. Fry thin slices of salt pork until crisp, then use the rendered drippings to make a simple milk-based gravy served over warm biscuits. And now, the climax, the single most important meal in all of Appalachian folk medicine, and number one, chicken and rivel soup, sometimes simply called sick soup. Whenever illness, grief, or exhaustion settled into a mountain household, this was the dish that appeared on the table without anyone even needing to ask for it. A whole chicken was simmered for hours into a rich, golden broth, and instead of dumplings or noodles, tiny hand-rolled bits of flour and egg, called rivels, were dropped into the simmering pot, cooking into small, tender morsels throughout the soup. Grandmothers across the mountains would say the soup was made specifically for a body that needed comfort as much as it needed food, cooked whenever sorrow or sickness entered a home. Modern research now identifies the precise mechanisms behind why this instinct was so accurate. Chicken broth simmered for extended periods releases significant amounts of the amino acid cysteine, which a widely cited study out of the University of Nebraska Medical Center found has a measurable effect on reducing inflammation in the respiratory tract, closely mimicking the action of certain prescription decongestant medications. The warm broth itself increases the movement of mucus, easing the very symptoms that accompany the illnesses this soup was traditionally served for. Beyond the physical mechanism, a 2017 trial published in BMC Medicine, testing a Mediterranean-style whole food diet against a standard control diet, found that consistent whole food meals quadrupled remission rates in patients experiencing major depression, a finding that lines up remarkably well with the tradition of serving this exact kind of slow-simmered, nutrient-dense soup during periods of grief. Chicken and rivel soup is essentially a one-pot anti-inflammatory, mood-supporting meal. Cooked by instinct in mountain kitchens for generations, long before any laboratory confirmed why it worked. To prepare it the traditional way, simmer a whole chicken for several hours until the meat falls easily from the bone, then mix flour and a beaten egg together with your fingers until small pea-sized crumbles form, and drop these rivels directly into the simmering broth until they cook through and the soup thickens slightly. The knowledge in these 20 meals was never truly lost. It simply waited in old recipe boxes, in memories of grandmothers standing at wood stoves, in a way of eating shaped entirely by necessity and love, for modern science to finally catch up and explain exactly why it worked all along. That was 20 forgotten Appalachian meals that healed generations of mountain families. Hit subscribe. Next time we walk through 20 forgotten frontier remedies that pioneer families relied on before modern medicine ever reached the mountains. Don't miss it.